U.S. Ambassador Pete Hoekstra just made some dismissive remarks about Canada, setting off a new wave of debate about power, independence, and the future of Canada-U.S. relations.
And the president looked at his team and make it happen. And so everybody was upbeat moving forward. Then we got to, everybody seemed to think we were very, very close to making an announcement and a deal. And for some unforeseen and unpredicted activities, boom, it blows up.
Okay, so unforeseen activities, what are you referencing there?
Well, we're representing Canadian government ads, specifically targeting the President of the United States, specifically targeting his policies, using the words of a former Republican president that the Ronald Reagan Association, they're the keeper of the legacy of Ronald Reagan, said this ad misrepresents the comments that Ronald Reagan made about tariffs at that time.
In the interview, Hoekstra stated that Canadian-funded advertising campaigns inside the United States angered President Donald Trump. He described the move as unprecedented and said it crossed a line in Washington. More strikingly, he dismissed the idea that Canada could ever become a significant global power, economically or militarily, and reinforced the view that U.S. dominance is not up for debate. The comments quickly spread across Canadian media and political circles. For many, they didn't sound like routine diplomacy. They sounded like a warning. Hoekstra's remarks came at a sensitive moment. Canada is actively working to reduce its economic dependence on the United States, expand trade relations, and raise its global profile. Under Prime Minister Mark Carney, Ottawa has signaled that it wants a more independent path, not one defined solely by Washington's priorities. The ambassador's comments expose just how uncomfortable that shift has made some in the U.S. political establishment.
Think about it, okay? The president mentions an election in Canada, and I think there have been reports that says Canadians weren't happy about that, okay? This is taking a comment by a political person, whether it's the president or the prime minister, but then the government making a conscious decision to take taxpayer money, significant, $75 million, and say, we're going to run on the World Series, we're going to run it on Fox News, we're going to run it on NFL Sunday football, and the intent is to influence and divide the Republican Party, a specific political objective.
Now, for those who aren't familiar, the former U.S. President Ronald Reagan delivered a speech criticizing tariffs back in the day. Now, the absolute deadlock arrived when the government of Ontario made an ad featuring Reagan's speech and broadcast it over the media, which reportedly angered the current Republican U.S. President, Donald Trump.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs.
For Canada, the decision to fund those ads was deliberate. It reflected a belief that quiet diplomacy alone was no longer enough. When trade measures threatened Canadian jobs and industries, Ottawa chose to make its case publicly. But it didn't sit too well with the American High Command, apparently.
There is also the distinction, though. That was a provincial ad. That was sponsored by the government of Ontario, not the government of Canada. The level at which is the United States is engaging in these discussions.
Yeah, it was. We know that. Okay.
But no distinction.
When I was in Congress, and you'd like to think that everybody that is in your congressional district knows you, in America, it is, in my congressional district, and it's this way for every congressional district, about 50% of our constituents could not name who their congressperson was. They don't live and breathe politics each and every day like those of us who are involved in that business. Americans saw an ad that at the bottom of it says, paid for by maybe the province of Ontario or whatever, but it's very clear. This is an ad run by, coming from a government institution in Canada.
So who had such a strong reaction to this ad? Was it the staff at the White House? Was it the president himself? Who reacted badly to it?
I think the Canadians actually did a pretty good job. They got everybody mad, including the President of the United States.
Hoekstra addressed the controversy around Canadian-funded messaging campaigns that ran inside the United States. These ads were designed to push back against U.S. trade measures and highlight Canada's position on tariffs and economic fairness. According to Hoekstra, the campaign infuriated Trump. He said the president viewed the ads as foreign interference and a direct challenge. Hoekstra emphasized that this kind of messaging from a close ally was unheard of in Washington. His tone made clear that Canada's willingness to speak directly to the American public had struck a nerve. This aligns with earlier reports confirming that the Trump administration was angered by Canadian outreach efforts to U.S. voters and lawmakers during trade disputes. Hoekstra's reaction suggests that the strategy worked, at least in one sense. It got attention.
So where does Canada fit in that? If there is the preeminence of the United States, does that necessarily relegate Canada to a secondary role?
Well, unless Canada wants to, Canada is not going to be I think it would be difficult for Canada to become the preeminent military power and economic power in the world. Okay? I think what this says is we want America and our close allies, and we have no closer economic ally or a military ally than Canada. And so for us to achieve our objective in terms of being preeminent, I think what you've seen and what we've demonstrated over the last number of decades is that happens when we have a great relationship with Canada on those issues. And then it's Canada's responsibility to say, yeah, we see that same future going forward.
Let's hear it. The ambassador's comments also revealed something else: anxiety. As Canada becomes more confident in its public messaging, more active in defending its interests, and more willing to challenge U.S. narratives, Washington's reactions have grown sharper. The anger over Canadian ads is one example. The dismissal of Canada's ambitions is another. For decades, Canada was seen as predictable and nominal. That perception is changing, and change often triggers pushback. Carney's leadership style has amplified this shift. He does not engage in public sparring. He does not respond to insults with insults. Instead, he focuses on long-term positioning. That approach was visible when he dismissed Trump's offense as not newsworthy in a recent press conference. It's visible again in how Canada has responded to Hoekstra's remarks, calmly, firmly, without retreat.
The Pandora's box of the U.S. welcoming foreign governments to come into our election campaign. Okay, are we saying for 2026, hey, China, come on in. We've got congressional elections, control of the Senate and control of the House. We welcome foreign governments to come in and do political advertising in the United States of America during our election season. You can see that because we welcomed Ontario to come in and, to do that in 2025. No, that's not the message that America is sending out.
The question now is not whether Canada will become a global power in the traditional sense. The question is whether the definition of power itself is changing. Hoekstra's words revealed how Washington still sees the relationship. Carney's actions show how Canada now sees itself. Between those two views lies the future of North America, and it's no longer as one-sided as it once was.